Hey, Ep.2, take N, and we start now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Brown Noise.
I'm your host, Aditi.
And I'm your host, Nidhi. And today we have a really special episode planned for you guys. And it's a topic that I know both Aditi and I feel really personally about. It's something we have experienced, we're still experiencing, and it touches us really close to the heart. And we're gonna dive into it today.
Even while we were preparing for this podcast, we ended up having like a heart to heart with each other, you know? It sort of led to a very special conversation, even between us, because that's how truly we feel about this subject. And thinking of whatever journey we've come through until now, I feel like it sort of is a nice, cohesive conclusion to the first phase of our life and also how we're transitioning to the next.
The title of today's episode is called In the Middle of Becoming. And when you start dissecting it, I have goosebumps with just saying that. When you read into it, you realize that we're all going through a big transition. We are smack dab in the middle of becoming something new, finding ourselves, evolving, shedding, molting, metamorphosis, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're going to delve into today and speak about our experiences, and hopefully a lot of you out there can also relate.
The fact that we're somewhere in between where we were and who we're going to be and who we're becoming, there's a version of us that's just raw and restless and real. And today we're recording from that sacred space in between where the truth isn't polished, but it's just very honest. We want to understand ourselves too in this process. And hopefully, like, we'll find some answers that we can go back to and like apply to our lives.
Mhm.
I think we should just get right into it.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so Nidhi and I are the same age right now.
Mhm.
We're 96 babies. So we're like at the edge, the last thread of being a millennial. I have gone through millennial problems, so I will consider myself a millennial and also have like an old soul trapped in a body of this person who's just trying to figure out themselves.
You know how we
Um,
both know that we're millennial and not Gen Z? It's because we both have issues with boundaries. I don't think you need a bigger indicator of whether you're millennial or Gen Z. Just look at yourself and see if you're able to draw healthy boundaries, say no or say yes based on how you're feeling, and then you know which category you belong to.
the price we have to pay being millennials is that we identify generational trauma, especially when we reach a certain age, like in our late 20s. We're really
Hmm.
thinking about all of the trauma that, you know, like our parents have gone through, their parents have gone through, that we have to go through because of that. It's not early enough that we realize it, that, oh, we can like build a personality from it from scratch, like from when we were a kid. But
Hmm.
now, because we're realizing it now, it's almost causing a rebirth in our personalities and letting go of something that's so tightly wound into our core. I want to ask you the first question, which is, who were you before the world told you what to be?
That's a very introspective question. Honestly, I don't think there was ever a version of me before I was told who slash what I need to become. And a lot of the points you just mentioned about being brown, being people pleasers in a way, not having boundaries, plays an integral part in that. The earliest memory I have is just me as a child being told you need to study a certain way, dress a certain way, look a certain way. And of course, when you're a woman and brown, and especially in an Indian household, you're already born into a mold. So there is no form of free expression there. You're water that's already poured into a certain shaped vessel. And that's how you're expected to stay throughout your life. And I think that's the reason I don't think there was ever a version of me that was fully me or mostly me. I think I was more a byproduct of my environment, the society at the time, the norms, and the limitations. And that's why growing up now, I'm able to feel the difference and the internal rebellion that I have. So it's kind of like your mind and body screaming on the inside and letting you know something's not right, that who you were and the things you did are not something you're able to identify with anymore. You're not able to wholeheartedly continue living that version of yourself because it's just not who you are. So, yeah, to answer your question very simply, I don't think a version of me like that has unfortunately ever existed. And I don't think I'm the only one. And I'm also saying that being born into maybe a rather modern family that's not extremely traditional. So I can only feel for all the people out there who were born into even tighter and more rigid molds, how that must feel now to break out of the cast of who you once were.
At least now that we have stepped out of our houses and we're not like controlled in that sense anymore, and we're sort of like the free water that's flowing. I feel like at least now we have that sort of freedom to think about these things and be like, oh, what do I like? What do I not like?
Hmm.
But there are people I know who come, like you said, from more traditional families who end up getting married under the same context and end up spending the rest of their lives, have kids, and they're still bound to the same personality that's not been developed by themselves, it's all under the influence of their upbringing. And I'm not saying it's a wrong thing. There are a lot of traditions that have been followed that have worked, but I think it's about the intention of the family that you're with, whether they want
Hmm.
to just have some sort of control and be like, okay, we want a successful, happy family, or like just a
Hmm.
family that looks good in society. So that we are going to do these kind of things to make it seem that way. And our generation is trying to break those generational traumas. I think that sort of comes to my next question, which was, what are the masks that you want to outgrow?
Is it too depressing if I say all of them? I think I'm really in the pits of a metamorphosis, or that's what I feel like at least. And it feels like I've been performing for so long, and not just for my parents or some acquaintances or for the people at work, but I feel like I've also been performing for myself. And this can be traced back to maybe you have very high expectations of yourself, or you need to be an overachiever to feel like you can be at peace with yourself, or you even need to achieve something to just exist as a human. And I think I hid behind a lot of things that I do to escape who I am. That's where I feel like I don't know if I would call it many masks, or just that currently my whole existence feels like a mask in different ways. So yeah, it's a very sad feeling when you just go through many days and nights feeling quite unsettled inside, and you're not sure why. You're like, okay, work is fine, friends and family, touch wood, are healthy, relationship, your pets, whatever, everything's okay, but you still feel a weird heaviness inside you. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized I'm just unhappy with myself because I don't feel like myself anymore. I don't know if what I'm doing now is what I want to be doing. I don't know if who I am now is who I wanted to be or thought I would be. I will say, however, recognizing that you're feeling this is already getting you a step closer to the shifting process. And to anyone else who might be feeling the same out there, don't run away from the feeling. I know it's really uncomfortable, scary. I promise there's nothing wrong with you. You're not alone. There maybe millions of us going through the same thing, but just you owe it to yourself to sit with the feeling, analyze where it might be coming from, and process it in whatever way, shape, or form. I have a saying that I really like, which is if you don't like something, just move, even physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, because you're not a tree. Just move. So just start the journey. If you feel like you're wearing a mask and the true you, whatever it is on the inside, is crying to come out, then you owe it to yourself to let it out. What about you? Because I think you can do a big fat heart relate? How is your perception on this?
I mean, we come from similar families, so I totally relate in terms of at least the demographic of the families we come from. And I felt the same way, but luckily decided to do art school. That was a life-defining moment for me because I felt like I spent 3 years of my life not just doing my master's, but just finding out more about myself, who I really am. I mean, anyone who's gone to art school, you guys can relate to this. They literally make you find your voice because if you don't know who you are, you won't be able to make something authentic. You won't be able to create. You'll just be influenced and you won't be actually adding something to the world.
Mm-hmm.
You'll just be repeating. So
Mm-hmm.
the only way that you can create something that's totally yours is by first finding out more about yourself and like who you are
Mm-hmm.
and how your creative expression is. So diving right into the pits of like, whoa, I have no idea who I am. And like I'm surrounded by people who are just creating and I need to find my voice. It sort of
Mm-hmm.
pushed me up, brought me into a very uncomfortable situation. I remember struggling for like a few months because that's nobody had ever asked me before, like, what
Mm-hmm.
are you without your mask on? And I had never questioned myself about that. Finally, I got to do that. When you take off your mask, you're still changing, you're still not a
Mm-hmm.
constant person. So to realize
Yep.
the difference between whether you're putting on another mask or if you're
Mm-hmm.
truly changing into your
Yeah.
natural form and you're truly growing
Mm-hmm.
into the person you're meant to grow into. I think that is the difference that confused me because I feel like there were moments where I thought it was me growing into someone, but it was actually me trying to please someone and like putting another mask on. It just because we were put into like different situations, like all of a sudden I'm working and I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to, please the people around me or trying to establish myself in a certain way, even though it's super hard work and it's not happening as organically as I hope. So I
Yep.
feel all these transitions made me feel, oh my God, am I being authentic enough? Am I being authentic? And it was so intense, that intention of wanting to be genuine, and that had already established itself. There are a few moments in my life where I have felt completely myself. And I owe
Mm-hmm.
that all to the creative side of me, just living freely and just being. That part came
Mm-hmm.
out from my creative side. And now that
Yeah.
I have felt it, I crave it so much. It's so addicting. I always want to feel that way. And I realize I feel like I know when I'm putting a mask on, know when I'm not. But it's
Mm-hmm.
still hard to take it off because again, it's so deep rooted in us. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that I struggle with. I go to therapy for it. It's something that is a work in progress. It's always going to be a work in progress, but I'm hoping that I'm not going to be affected eventually by just something I'm like wearing on my skin, but
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be more of an organic growth from the inside, and that's what's going to be portrayed out to the world.
Maybe
Yeah.
one important thing you just said, it's okay for you to behave differently based on who you're hanging out with or the context or the setting you're in. Don't confuse that sometimes maybe with putting on a mask. It's okay to be adaptive based on who you are and what part of you needs to come out and dominate and be presented on that day. But what can help is having a strong sense of center and trying to find your core principles, some of your values, where you say, okay, this is where I draw the line. Everything within this is my center. I will not allow anything to shake it. And anything after that is something I'm okay accepting or allowing into my life. So if you're struggling with that, and maybe imagine this totally happening in a work context for women where they feel like they need to fully transform themselves and put on a different mask to establish themselves. We can make a whole episode on that, and we will. So just if anyone's feeling that, maybe find your sense of self and center, and then it's okay to adapt what part of you needs to come out when. But this might help you then shed the mask, but still be different versions of you based on the requirement.
There are so many things that can make you love yourself, you know? And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
just identifying these small things that you can enjoy and you're like, oh shit, I brought this enjoyment onto my life because I
Mm-hmm.
recognized what I like and I did
Yeah.
something for that liking. It sort of gives you a sense of hope to find out more things about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it has to be constant and can never change. You can maybe
Exactly.
be okay with something that you weren't a few years ago because you've
Yeah.
grown up and realized things. But I think it's to start off any sort of recognition, it's to identify what you don't like and just accepting it, like not blaming
Mm-hmm.
yourself for it,
Yeah.
not making yourself feel petty about it, just identifying
Mm-hmm.
it, accepting it, and being like, it's not too late. Now I can
Mm-hmm.
restart this journey.
A key thing you just mentioned, and I cannot emphasize it enough. It's okay for you to change your mind on things. Please do not let anyone come up to you and be like, oh, but you didn't feel that way yesterday, or oh, you've changed your thoughts on. Yes, yes, we're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
We're constantly evolving every second of every day, whether you see the evolution, whether it's tangible or not. So please, if you are changing, embrace it and do not let anyone make you feel any negative way about that. You can change your mind. You liked something yesterday, you don't like it today. That's perfectly valid. So please, please, this is a PSA to everybody out there. You're allowed to change your mind.
Yeah, and as human beings, like it's in our nature to not feel the
Yeah.
same way about things on
Yeah.
2 consecutive days. It's natural. So we are just embracing what is
Mm-hmm.
natural to us. When I've changed my mind about myself, and when I have tried to evolve, it's always felt like I was dying first and being
Mm-hmm.
reborn. It's not like a peaceful death, it's like a painful death which
Mm-hmm.
I've had to literally struggle through the worst feelings that I have ever felt. And then sort of broken out of that shell. I do feel like it's, a moment where a spiritual caterpillar is in denial of turning into its full form. And you go
Mm-hmm.
through all of the struggle where you're like just eating all the information around you, trying to figure it out. And you're like, is it going to work? Am I going to turn into a full form? But you're just taking it in, and you're feeling full. Your heart is heavy.
Yeah.
And then finally, you find a moment of solace where you're like, okay, now I
Mm-hmm.
feel peaceful about it and I can spread my arms. I know that we're both still in the process of healing ourselves. But I do want to know your experience of going through that emotional sort of dying phase, for lack of
Mm-hmm.
better words, and how you are getting through it.
I can definitely use my current life as an inference for this. And maybe the example might seem a little vain to some people, but like you mentioned, we're still in the healing process. That also means we're going through some tough times, hard emotions. And I felt there was a lot of pent up energy and frustration in me. And I realized it's because I did not have a creative outlet anymore. And for those of you who know me, also for those of you who don't know me, I identify as a creative person. And at some point, I just shut down. I cut off all of them. So photography went through the window, singing, playing the guitar, painting, posting on social media, trying to curate visually pleasing content, for lack of better word. I completely not even deprioritize it. I just deleted it off the list of things I wanted to do. And I don't think it was a conscious decision. It's just that I just became a shell of a human being for quite a few years. And I pondered over this for far too long, embarrassingly long. And then at some point I just said, fuck it, fuck it. I will just start how I can, where I can, do whatever little bits and pieces. So maybe some of you see now that I'm posting random stuff on Instagram again. I also developed a very unhealthy relationship with it, but I'm trying to just use it for fun and just make it my own little digital scrapbook of little creations that I'm putting personality and creative energy into. And another very big thing is this podcast, which is also a byproduct of this spiritual caterpillar evolution in the becoming. And yeah, I mean, this is one instance where I battled with these feelings for a long time and I actually decided to act upon it. But I will say it took very many years of suffering, a lot of mental breakdowns to reach this point. But I'm glad I did nevertheless. So that's like a little victory arc, I think, at the end of it. But
Yeah.
what about you? I know you said art school thankfully already started pushing you in the right direction, but have there been moments since where you felt that way?
Yes, like I'm feeling it right now as well. I
Mhm.
think I'm at the peak actually. I might look calm and composed, but I'm at the peak of my spiritual rebirth. I feel like all of my life experiences and everything has sort of pushed me to my extreme. I don't want to regret not doing anything, so I allow myself to feel to the max, experience things to the max, connect with people as much as possible. I want to like just be healing with my presence. I don't want myself to be someone who impacts an environment in a wrong way. I
Yeah.
always want my intentions to be pure. So I always have these pressures. I mean, it's easy to just mess up and not think about things, but I think being conscious about it itself is
Yeah.
not easy, but I went through enough. I had a huge change in my life where, I came to India for a few months and now I'm here right now in India. Being close to my family made me think a lot about who I was, who I am, how I was when I was by myself, know how I want to feel because I have felt certain sense like levels of happiness, at least with myself, but I
Hmm.
know the place that I'm in is so important for me to go through because I know how that I'm gonna be a much more grown and evolved person coming out of it. I don't believe that you can ever grow into something beautiful without really going into it with like
Hmm.
a zoomed in lens. Even if you want to have a really good presentation, it's like you have to struggle and work. And I feel like
Yeah.
when when we're willing to do that for some other person who's just because they're paying us, we're working our asses off just to create that one 10-minute presentation, which nobody's going to remember probably in the next few years. We don't give ourselves that grace when we are going through a lot just to get
Hmm.
at a point where we're something better. So
Yeah.
I do feel like this feeling of dying is super important. It's important for us to recognize that, in order to become something to its full fruition, we need to really break ourselves apart. And it's almost like putting the pieces back together, but in a way that just relaxes us and calms us because now we have the maturity to do that. Or, in another 10 years, I might feel the exact same way. I'm not saying you only
Hmm.
go through the cycle of like that feeling like you're dying emotionally once.
Hmm.
Like it's gonna keep happening. I feel like it's a good thing. It just means
Hmm.
that you're more sensitive to the cosmic universe and because it's important for us to be in tune with how nature works too. Like we have 4 seasons, we have even the trees shedding their leaves before they grow into
Yeah.
beautiful flowers. I feel like it's so natural for us to go through these cycles and be
Hmm.
born into like new personalities.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's so hard. It's so hard that it's affected me a lot because at points I felt like I had no control over my life. And after being an independent woman, not having control over your life really messes with your head. It made me lose my confidence. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But I think I'm at a place now where I can say with surety that all of those horrible feelings were as hard as they are something that I had to go through in order to
Hmm.
like reestablish myself. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of where I stand with that.
It's also important for people to realize that it's okay if you feel like your identity is changing for a few years. If you think you want to be a corporate butcher, boss ass bitch, and then the next few years you want to have a slow living, you want to maybe work on a farm, I don't know. It's completely fine. And you don't have to make yourself feel guilty for changing and for your interests changing and for you to be identifying with something drastically different. So give yourself that space to maneuver, explore. Doesn't matter how old, young, whatever you are. If you feel that there is something in you that wants to explore it, please do it. Otherwise you will be doing a disservice to yourself.
We've always been like mentally wired. Oh, by 30, you need to achieve this. By 10th, you need to do well. 12th, you need to do well. Then you need to study something. Then you need to study another thing. Then you need to get a job. Then by 30, you need to have your own house. Then we're always like associating being a version of ourselves to a certain age. And I think that is
Hmm.
so wrong.
And
Coming closer to 30, it hits me more, but it's such a wrong notion that especially like I know all Indians can relate to this. It's so unnecessary. I don't think we should
mhm.
live by that.
In India, the pressures put on you for a certain achievement related to a certain age for women and men are so different. And we can speak now as women that the pressure is so intense. And this is not pressure that's originating from within you. It's a lot of external pressure in all different directions that's just compressing you into a tightly wound ball of self-doubt and inherited disappointment.
We kind of spoke about, having breakdowns before breakthroughs. Almost feel like it's like an art of becoming no one before you become someone. And I think we need to focus on like enjoying not
Hmm.
not really enjoying the struggle, but enjoying the fact that the struggle is all for a purpose that's like so much more important than the other things that are going on in our lives. Like we need to focus
Hmm.
on improving and growing as individuals as much as we put effort into our work, as much as we put effort into doing things for other people. I think
Hmm.
it's a nice way of self-care, and I think it's the most important thing. I feel like everyone's trying to live, but you don't need to
Hmm.
try to do something that you're already doing, you know? It's like we need to figure out how to bridge that gap between trying to live and how our body's actually doing. Like we're actually living, and this is where our
Hmm.
mind is. So like how do we merge those things together? And how do we find, like peace with us just being and not being expected of things in order to be someone,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think we have covered a few important topics. One thing I did want to bring up was, okay, so we have the freedom to say these things to each other. We feel like we have a very safe space with each other. And
Hmm.
we have gone through moments where we haven't spoken to each other for quite some time. And then we reconnected at a different phase of our life. I mean, we were lucky that even though we connected after a little bit of a gap, I think our growth trajectories had been in a way where since we're like pretty like-minded as human beings, like
Hmm.
it kind of synced and we were still able to, adapt into each other's grown personalities and still connect in the same intensity. Like I mean, I knew we were close, but once we reconnected, I was like, damn, we are close, you know? So I
Yeah.
do want to talk about adult friendships, and I think this is an age where we're trying to find people who we can, really trust and share our lives with. And now that we are creating our own lives, we're in that phase where we bear the consequences of our actions. We are a lot more mindful as to who we surround ourselves with. I do want to talk about these adult friendships, and I want to ask you what your thought is about how these friendships change and where you
Hmm.
are at making friends and like really connecting with people, being able to share like, at this phase of your life.
Oh, this is a really hard hitting question. I will just say it out loud. Adult friendships or making friends as an adult, for me at least, is extremely hard. And I'm not sure if it's just because of the context and the setting of who I am, plus where I'm living and what I'm searching for that's not working, or if it's me, hey, I'm the problem, it's me. I did realize that once I moved away from home, like I was also kind of escaping a little bit, so I lost touch with a lot of people for a while, and I wasn't communicating with my closest people in the same intensity I was before. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just work on myself, do this move and everything else for myself. And I did make a few friends at university here when I came to study. And what I did realize is that most people who are born here maybe go abroad for a little bit, but they all come back, or most of them come back. And because of that, they already have their close-knit friend groups that they have known for years and years and years. Like you and I know each other. There's no way you can break into these groups. That's really difficult. One, I think it takes quite a bit of time to get through to Germans because they are quite reserved in how they interact with people. It takes a little bit of time, which I totally understand. You don't want to invite just anybody and everybody into your life. But then I also realized that I was looking for the same kind of friends I had back at home here. And that left me extremely disappointed for very many years and maybe even blocked me from making more friends because the friends I have at home, that level of friendship and that intensity of friendship didn't happen overnight. It's because we were going through thick and thin for multiple years together, and we were there for each other during these moments that solidified our bonds. Maybe it was also wrong for me to search for the same type of friendship here and draw parallels between the two. So that took me a little longer than I would have liked to understand that maybe this is a wrong way of going about it. And you can find friends to serve different purposes in your life. So you can find friends that you want to share a hobby with. You can find friends just who like going to drink coffee and taking pictures. You can find friends at work, you know? And I'm on this journey now where I am paying a little bit more attention to the friends I have made here at university and also some former co-workers and current co-workers to, and of course, it's not all of them. I am not a proponent of always turning your work people into your friends, but if it does end up happening because you connect so well, that's perfectly fine. I'm paying a little bit more attention to these bonds I've formed here as well because they have experienced a different side of me and have been there for a different stage of my life. So yeah, it's not easy. I will definitely say being an outsider, so to say, in a completely different country where the language is not the same, the culture is vastly different from what you would experience on our side of the world. It took me a very long time to one, realize that I might be going about this the wrong way. Two, be okay with the phase where I don't really have friends. And then three, start acknowledging new bonds and realizing, okay, they are slightly more than acquaintances to me because I'm able to share certain things with them and realizing, okay, these are my friends and I need to give this relationship that respect and maintain it and nurture it. But that being said, there are so many people that I don't consider friends anymore just because I know that I've outgrown them. Growing up, I would consider anybody and everybody my friend. I would invite everybody into my home. Maybe you know this. We would have massive sleepovers at my place where everyone would be invited into my personal space. I guess this is something I had to go through while being still rather young to realize that that's not how it should be. You should be stricter with who you allow that close into your life. It's definitely okay and quite important to outgrow people if you see that you're either growing in completely different directions or you're just growing and you feel like they're quite stagnant and you don't meet on a certain mental wavelength that I think is very, very important. More than geographical proximity and maybe like-minded interests, you need to be on a certain mental frequency if you still want to keep people around in your adulthood as friends. So that's been my experience with losing friends, outgrowing them, and acquiring and acknowledging new friendships in my adulthood. But I feel like you might have a slightly different experience with this, or at least what I might have seen little snippets of from Instagram, some people you might have hung out with from art school that you've shared a lot of different experiences with. What was it like for you with adult friendships?
Okay, I want to start off by saying that in school, I was extremely introverted to myself. I have been bullied by a few girls in my class. Eventually, when I grew up and I found you and like, our other friends, I feel like I finally broke out of my shell and I was like, oh shit, people actually like me for me and I can be myself. And,
Mm-hmm.
you guys really brought that out of me and I was able to
Mm-hmm.
really come out of that small little bubble I put myself in just to keep myself safe. And then there were a lot of different events that happened even between our lives. And then the dynamics changed, improved, got more real. And then when I
Mm-hmm.
moved to art school, and initially I was just like becoming friends with everyone, like I feel like the moment I really started to make bonds with people as an adult was when I truly wanted to just be myself, be honest, just be happy with myself for existing and then see what kind of people I attracted. I don't have to do much of the work to be like, oh, are we in, like a place where we can be friends? Like it was more organic, like my energy attracted such
Mm-hmm.
like-minded people. We all ended up developing like a soul bond, where it's like, whoa, this is not even friendship. They're like my soul friends or like my soul
Mm-hmm.
sisters, rather than like have the expectations of a friendship. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I did need the kind of, relationship that both of us share, where, I mean, I feel like both of us believe that we want to, embrace our duties as being a best friend to the other person. I also have like friendships now where I'm so transparent with you. And I feel like as I grew up, I was always there for everybody. Okay. I was
Mm-hmm.
always there for everybody. I always did things for others. I went out of my comfort zone. I was okay with things. I was like a doormat,
Mm-hmm.
easily pushed over. And now I've reached a point where I don't even care if I make more friends. Like I'm always open to it, but I don't really care about that anymore because
Mm-hmm.
I want to just work on all of the connections that I have right now and make them stronger. So that's kind of where I am, but it's definitely not easy. Like there have been a lot of times where I've felt completely alone. Somehow, like during your birthday time, all your friends become busy, and that's when you're like, oh shit, like do I really have someone who's
Yeah.
willing to like travel and spend my birthday with me, or like what's going on? And I think those are the kind of moments that make you feel more of an adult and like having to deal with
Mm-hmm.
adult friendships because when you're a kid, it's like no matter whether they're there for you or not, they'll show up for your birthday. But now it's like, even though they're always there for you, they might not turn up for your birthday?
Yeah.
So I think like those kind of differences, I've come to accept them now. It
Mm-hmm.
took me some time because I was like, no, like my friends have to be so close to me. I want to be loved. Like growing up,
Mm-hmm.
being a people pleaser, like how you feel, I always wanted to be loved by people. I always wanted everyone to feel like they want to be my friend, and I ended up like
Yeah.
losing parts of me because of that. I didn't even know if someone actually liked me or not at the end of the day, and I was always alone. But now, even though I'm alone, I have all these beautiful connections with people that never let me feel completely alone because I know that they're always there for me. And I think that is what happened to me as becoming an adult. It was more about accepting
Mm-hmm.
relations, it was more about what a friendship really means to me and what do I want from a friendship. Those were
Mm-hmm.
sort of things that I started defining for myself. And yeah, that was sort of like how my adult friendship journey is right now. And I'm so glad that we reconnected means the world to me, honestly. I mean, if anyone out there who knows us from back when we were in college, both of us were like this dynamic duo. We would always hang out together,
Yeah.
literally always be together. And that energy was very contagious.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I always miss that, no matter where I went. You taught me what it was to like be a good friend because I never had a girl best friend before I met you. And I feel like it inspired me even to build my other friendships in the future, which I
Yeah.
have. That's kind of where I am.
And I think it probably definitely was some sort of universal signaling calling that we both felt the strong need for this level of girl best friend to come back into our lives, that we just reconnected with the same needs and wishes from the other person. You're like, oh, do you want to be best friends again with that intensity? Yeah, I do. Okay, cool. Reactivate, you know? It's like reactivating a subscription that you forgot to pay for a little bit in the middle. And it's just like, do you want to pick up exactly where you left off? Yes, please. No, it's a beautiful thing. It's
Yeah.
yeah. And friendships can and will exist in all different shapes, shades, and forms, whether you're friends with people your own age, younger, older. Give it space to breathe and allow it to be a friendship for that reason. Because one person or one friend cannot fulfill all the needs that you have in your life. And that's something I've realized, that I think we've both realized now, and it makes it a little bit easier to then move on once you accept that.
I love that. Okay, we talked about friendships. We talked about our healing journeys a little bit. There's so much to it, like we can go on forever, but we can't. So, we're limiting ourselves. But I do want to know, at this age and phase of your life, what are you trying to forgive in yourself?
Oh wow. Ooh, what I'm trying to forgive myself for. Oh Jesus, I feel like the list is really long.
Okay, let
Mostly
me
for
simplify it for you. Like, give me one thing that you hope to forgive yourself for.
I think, no, I know I want to forgive myself for hating myself for so long. And this might sound really weird, but as a consequence of whatever happened in my childhood, as a consequence of my environment, society, whatever, I believed for a fact that liking slash loving yourself is a bad thing to do. And because of that, I had such deep rooted self-hatred. And I would even say that to people out loud now that I'm remembering it, pretty dark memory that's resurfacing, where I would say, yeah, I don't care about me. I hate myself. And to say these words out loud now as an adult just sounds incredibly sad and ridiculous. I want to forgive myself for treating myself so badly for so many years of my life, because I just didn't think I was worth it. I thought, why do you have to love yourself? Why do you have to even like yourself? You're not really that much. You're just taking up space. What is so special about you that you have to love yourself? Oh, I don't know if I've never said this out loud. So it's kind of weird to think about it. But yeah, I think that's one of the first things I should forgive myself for. And it's never too late. If anyone else felt that, please forgive yourself for it. You can always redeem it. You can go about living your life now with a lot of self-love. You deserve it. And that's what I'm trying to do with all these things that I spoke about in this episode, with the podcast, with creating things again, with drawing boundaries and nurturing different relationships and friendships. I think this is all the starting phase of forgiving myself for, yeah, just being really mean and horrible to myself. And yeah, self-hatred is a very nasty thing. So if you're in the middle of it, please get some help, talk to your friends or whoever you trust.
Yeah, I
But
mean that was beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. Honestly, like I know it's not easy to say all of things that we're saying out loud.
mhm,
It definitely takes a lot of energy out of us, but I think that's the space we're trying to create over here. So
yeah.
yeah, I really appreciate you for saying that. And I totally relate to it. I do think that you have all the reasons to forgive yourself for that, because you are an amazing person. You have brought so much love into my life. I think that you deserve to feel so happy. I'm always going to be there to push you to like love yourself more. And especially in adult friendships, I think that's so important. Like that we have to make the other person feel like they love themselves more. And
Mhm.
that's so beautiful because you feel so good then with the other person, and then you're so unstoppable together, you create such harmony.
And it goes back to what you said at the beginning of the episode with rewiring all these neural networks in your brain. And especially when these things form in your childhood, they are quite hardwired in a way. Not impossible to rewire, but it takes a lot of time and active effort and energy. Yeah, I think we all need to do it. And maybe you can share what your rewiring journey is now, what you think you want to or you should forgive yourself for.
Mine sort of is related to how you feel, except
Mm,
it's like a slightly different take. I have always felt so guilty, and I've been mad at myself for not sticking up for myself, for not being there for myself, for not, for allowing people to just like walk over me to every time I feel like I could have done so much more because I had that potential in me. And I feel that even professionally, personally, I always feel like I could be doing so much more. I could be been out there so much more, put my talent out there so much more. I've always been so hard on myself for
mhm.
being a certain person and or not being a certain person at a certain age. Like I was like, oh, I could have had such a better time at school, or I could have, done better at studies, and I could have done this, I could have done that. So I'm always like guilty about the things that I have not done for myself. And I think that's something I want to forgive in myself, which is that it's okay that you
Mhm.
have gone through these things and like not all of it was in your control. And even if it was, you only did the best that you thought at that moment. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what you did. And it's okay that I haven't experienced a certain moment a certain way because I
Mhm.
was not in my full form. Just being graceful with myself about these things, that's something so hard for me because I'm still so hard on myself, even about the things I'm doing every day. But that's something I'm actively working on.
If anyone listening out there wants a cathartic release, please leave in the comments below what you are trying to forgive yourself for or what you want to forgive yourself for. And maybe come back to this video in a couple months or even a year to see how you've gone on that journey of forgiveness. Because, like Aditi said, we want to try and just create a safe space for real conversation, and real conversations usually are difficult to have. They are emotionally draining. So, if you feel like you want to record it in a rather anonymous way where we don't really know each other, but we can relate to each other, just put it down in the comments. And you can revisit it later to see how far you've come in life.
Since we know each other so well, we're able to give ourselves that safe space, but we want to, you know, spread that to our audience as well, where this is a place for all of these open and real conversations. And if it's too hard to talk about, then we're probably going to talk about it. So I do want to end this episode by asking you one last question, which is, do you think the process of becoming is ever going to feel complete?
Oh, wow. I think my take on this is obviously twofolded, but I think, yes, it can be complete, but it's never over. What I mean by that is at some point you will start feeling whole again. And that's where you reach this level of completeness because all of your being is your authentic being. And you know for a fact, you feel deep within you that, okay, I am exactly who I am, what I want to be, not with the materialistic things around, but just with your values, your principles, your beliefs, and your experiences. And what I mean by it's never over is then this whole continues to evolve. So instead of just pieces of you transforming and growing and evolving, it'll then be the whole of you that's growing and evolving. So that's a journey I'm scared but excited to go on.
Yeah, and probably it's gonna happen as we start recording more videos. So we can always come back and like share where we are at different phases of our,
Hmm.
like journeys as well, and be like, oh, remember how we spoke about how we're
Hmm.
trying to evolve. Like this is where we've evolved to,
Yeah.
and I'm sure people would like to see that, whether we're actually using the things we talk about. And yeah, like to add to your point, I do believe that like feeling complete is something only we can define for ourselves. We, it's not some kind of textbook definition of what complete means because we're all so uniquely 100% us. You're
Hmm.
a whole, I'm a whole, but we're so different. And what might feel complete to you might not feel complete to me, and vice versa. So we need to be defining what feels complete to us. And in my opinion, what's worked for me is starting with this really small fragments of maybe feeling or making yourself feel complete by one or two activities you do every day. It's about basically adding all of those complete moments in each day
Hmm.
and realizing those feelings at all of those instances to make yourself feel more like a whole human being.
No, I can only agree with everything you just said. I can relate, I understand, and I accept it. So I guess that's a wrap for episode 2 of Brown Noise. Thank you everybody for listening and or watching. I guess we will see you in our next episode. Until then, tune into the frequency. This is Brown Noise. See you. That was that was heavy hitting, dude. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Ah,
It is not an easy episode. I know how you don't really love sharing so much in public, and neither do I, but
yeah.
I think it's definitely something that's gonna help people and people can relate to. And thank you for being honest.
I'm trying. It's not easy. I know I'm smiling, but it's a forced smile because I know my jaw hurts. But on
Yeah,
the inside, I really feel like shit because I'm saying all the crap I have in my head out loud. And then when you say it out loud, it becomes real. And I like living in denial. So, but
yeah. Okay, therapy is too expensive, so we decided to
yeah.
do this podcast.
All right, then
I'll see you
I'll
next
see you
time.
later. Bye.